The Doomsday Phone's been holding steady. And the fun part is, I think this might be getting some media attention. I know the owner of this is going to be quoted in an upcoming article in a major newspaper, as am I, but I don't know what the substance of the story is at this point. They did tell me enough to mention that they were going to include my place of work, and I'm glad they happened to mention that, because I was like, please just don't do that. Don't tell anybody where I work. I don't know. Anyway, these cards have been here since last week, and it doesn't look like anyone has even picked up the handset, or this one would have fallen off. Or maybe not. Oops. I like the placement where it just shows the word payphone. Subtle, gets people's attention, right? I don't even know. But as I've said to an artist friend, I've gotten 3 definite calls from people who found these cards on the Link NYC machines. And I say definite and confirmed because the calls were made from Link NYC machines. And if I could trace 3 bulletproof certain calls like that from a guerrilla advertising campaign like this, that's pretty damn impressive. This one was up on Ditmars. This was one of the last 2 landline payphones in all 5 boroughs. Street phones, that is. All the PTS indoor phones are landline, but of the City Bridge stable, this was one of only 2 that was left in the end. They never converted it, I don't know why. This one, there was another one over on Queens Boulevard. And there was something quirky about this phone too. Like if you called 1-800-WEATHER, for instance, you were supposed to connect to a weather service, but it would connect you to a sweepstakes or a, thank you for calling, please enter you want a free cruise or something like that. If you called 1-800-WEATHER from this phone, it would send you to that you'd want a cruise thing. But if you called it from any other phone, you'd get the weather. Anyway, that all changed. Now if you call 1-800-WEATHER, you get sent to a pot store in Seattle. At least that was the case the last time I tried it. I wouldn't know why a pot shop would pick up 1-800-WEATHER, but that's what they did. But yeah, this was a quirky phone. I don't know if I have anything to say about this one, except that it's right across the street from the last one. It was. And I think there were actually 2 here, if those pipes are any indication. I only remember there being 1, but I think at some point there were 2. And I know I used this one for some radio calls. This is up Ditmars, off of 29th Street, across from the big church where they have the really beautiful church bells. Beautiful sound. I missed them. I heard them a little while ago, but from far away.
Elmhurst Boulevard, 45th Street.
Hazen Street, or as I like to call it, the road to Rikers. 'Cause that's the next stop if you keep going this way, the Rikers Island Bridge. I want to see if there's any trace of the Rikers Payphone that used to be out here at 19th Avenue. There was at least one, and it was all just beat out of shape and dead for years and years. They don't really have payphones on Rikers. I mean, all phones are payphones, right? Somebody's paying for the call, but they don't have coin-fed, or you can't even pay by credit card from Rikers phones, or from most prison phones, as far as I know. The cost is borne by the people that the prisoner calls. They can only call collect, or through a system called Securus, where their family members or attorneys or whatever have a Securus account, and they have to keep that account funded for them to be able to receive calls from prisoners. Securus is the name of the company that maintains those type of phones, and it's been controversial for a variety of reasons, but not least of all that they were really gouging the hell out of the families or the people who took calls from the prisoners. It was stupid expensive. And look at this, it's still here. There's still a square or a rectangle. So yeah, this would be last chance to make a phone call before taking the bus to Rikers. This Q100, well, this is going to Long Island City, but it actually starts on Rikers, and you have to present some kind of proof that you have legitimate reason to go over there before they'll let you board that bus. Or so I'm told. Maybe they're lax with that kind of thing. I don't know. But that's where the payphone used to be. The road to Rikers. I was going to try to do more video of the entrance to Rikers, but probably not supposed to, and there were a lot of cop cars around, and what does the world benefit from? Well, I mean, I know they don't want you taking photos or videos of the bridge, the Rikers Island Bridge, which is that way. One of the unexpected interactions that I've experienced on my job is that I talk to a lot of prisoners on Rikers. I really wasn't expecting that. You know, one minute I'm talking to a distressed mother whose kid ran away, and the next thing you know, I'm talking to a first-degree murderer. And those voices stick in my head. I let those voices go to my head. And so many of them will say to me at the end of the call, they'll be like, "Don't ever end up here, Mark. Just don't ever let yourself end up here. This is a horrible, horrible place." I like these. The in-ground trash cans. These are cool. Very sturdy. The power of the earth to hold you up. Yeah, here's a bunch more. The in-ground garbage cans. They have a few of these around, but I mean, they're not totally unique or anything. But it just seems kind of quaint in a strange way. We didn't have these where I grew up. Somewhere around here, Within the last maybe 7 or 8 years, there was a horrible accident involving a carload of teenagers, and the kid was driving with 3 or 4 other kids, and there was no booze or drugs or anything, but somehow the driver, it was dark and there's no lighting, and the kid driving seems to have just gotten confused. And he ended up driving the carload of kids right into a river, right into a ditch or a gully or some little body of water. It was enough to kill them all. And those kind of like youthful mistakes that people make, which result in horrible consequences, reminds me of some kids, speaking of where I grew up, so some kids outside of Tampa once, I think this is when I was in high school, or maybe just out of high school, so they were about my age, and they thought it would be funny to remove a stop sign from an intersection. And guess what? Some car or truck or something drove in full tilt. There was no stop sign, had no reason to stop. Ended up killing somebody in a collision, and they threw the book at those kids. They might have gone away for like 20, 25 years. And I had a brief acquaintance with somebody who had been appointed deputy mayor of, I don't want to give away too much, but he had been appointed deputy mayor of a city. And apparently they didn't do the full background check. But the press did, and the press found that when this dude was a kid, he was running drugs and running guns, I guess they call it. Shows how street savvy I am. But he was basically doing some low-level shit. You know, he wasn't robbing stores, or he wasn't with a gang or anything like that, although there were gangs in this town. But he just did some shit like that was pretty much in character with the city that he grew up in. It's like, I forget who said it once, but like when Bill Clinton admitted to smoking pot, some comedian or I don't know what said, you know, he's a child of the 60s. Would you vote for someone who did not smoke pot in the 60s? And this person that I'm referring to was kind of, you could say the same. Like, do you trust a guy to represent your city if he grew up in that city and was outside of all the stuff that makes that city what it is, for better or worse? Long story short, he got fired from the deputy mayor position. And our interaction revolved around a domain name that I owned. He wanted to have that domain name and set up a website for him to tell his side of the story, and that domain name would have been perfect for him for a variety of reasons. And I was ready to give it to him for free, even though it was a valuable domain name. I was ready to just give it to him because I don't think it's fair that you should have to pay a penalty for the rest of your life for low-level offenses, or even more serious ones. Anyway, the dude turned out to be unreliable, and he said he was going to connect me to somebody that was going to build the website for him, and none of that ever happened. And he just kind of disappeared on me, which is too bad. Interesting guy. I can't even remember his name now. And of course, I can't think of youthful mistakes that have lifelong consequences without reflecting on my own brush with almost being a felon, which is back in college. It's a long story, but Me and some friends got busted for phone phreaking at a time when the FBI really didn't even know what that was. That's the road to LaGuardia, by the way. One of the strange perks about living in Astoria is that you can walk to the airport. And I did that a couple of times when I worked in corporate. I would have to take the shuttle to Dulles for business meetings, and all I'd need was like a notebook and a pen. So I would just walk to the airport with that. That and the ticket, of course. Anyway, but my friends and I got busted for that stuff, and as the FBI dude who interrogated me pointed out, he had a number 3 on his report. Somebody had handwritten the number 3, indicating that this was only the 3rd investigation of this nature that the FBI had ever done. That's got to make me ask what the first 2 were. And in the end, I'm all free and clear with no record of any sort. And the permanent record is sealed, or so we're told. But I was thinking of this last week because for my job, I finally got fingerprinted. I've been waiting since January for that. They've been reluctant to do it because of COVID, but they finally let it go. I didn't think of this till later, but man, I wonder, because I was fingerprinted as part of that investigation, is there any way they could make a connection? And if they do, well, they're going to be disappointed if they think they got me, because, like I said, in the end, no charges were filed, never went to trial. I mean, no record exists. Charges were made, I guess. We were arraigned, but yeah, I thought of this later. Oh, that's right, I was just fingerprinted, wasn't I? I wonder if they're going to try to match that to some database somewhere. And they shouldn't be able to find anything because the record is supposed to be sealed. There were some things about that whole process that I didn't understand, but it all felt so heavy that I didn't feel I had any skin in the game as far as being able to ask questions or suggest that maybe we weren't supposed to be fingerprinted, or maybe we were not supposed to have pled not guilty, because some of the proceedings had the makings of a trial, of a real on-the-record thing, but if the record is sealed, right? This is a part of Astoria I don't get up to. I guess this is probably East Elmhurst by now. I don't make it up here too often. It's already like 80 degrees. Yeah, I remember this. From whenever the last time I was up here, the LaGuardia bus depot and FedEx has a huge facility here too. It's not as big as the one out by Calvary, but still pretty big. Super VIP. That's me. Super VIP. Supra. If I'm tempted to call this area Astoria, as I did, it's just because that road back there was Astoria Boulevard. But this would be East Elmhurst. In fact, there's some proof. The Avion Inn identifies itself as East Elmhurst, located. This piece of road up ahead, I think I used to see stretch limousines parked here. And it looked like they'd been parked for months and months. There's also a strange little park where I think you're supposed to sit and watch the planes come and go. I think that's up ahead. I didn't really have a plan today, but plans are kind of boring, or they can be. I think this is, oh, look at that fence got torn out. That doesn't look good. Indeed, here it is, a strange little park. Planeview. Oh, the trees are cool. Someone needs to cut the grass, but what a beautiful view. This is where I used to see stretch limos parked. There were like a whole bunch of them. I'm not seeing that now, but that's a long time ago. Oh, that car's a piece of work with the hatchback open. This is a piece of road where people think you can park forever because there's no side of street parking signs. And you see how dirty the streets get when they don't do that. I've seen a lot worse than this, but it's actually not legal to park anywhere in New York for more than 7 days straight. Doesn't matter if there's no side of street parking. There's my favorite, the emergency call box. In the event of a fire, you're supposed to pull that big handle. And when you do that, this light isn't going to go off, but it's supposed to start blinking. And that blinking is supposed to be, I forget what the hell it's supposed to signal. I think it's supposed to be for emergency responders to, they should look for the blinking light as a clue to where they're supposed to be going. This is cool. Just the frame of a vessel. I believe this used to be a Fairfield Inn. Maybe like a Courtyard Marriott or something like that. I also seem to remember they had a payphone out front. These are the things I remember. I don't see any concrete smear though. That's obvious. I just always remember thinking a place like this would be a smart place to put a phone if you were in the business. Although they probably have them inside, or had them at least. I don't see any planes coming or going. I think I saw one taking off. Maybe all the activities on the other side, off in the mist, off in the fog. Oops. Okay, here's where the side of street parking rules start up again. But for much of that past stretch, there was none. At least I didn't see any signs. I remember one day I woke up from a dream. I like bolted awake from it. It wasn't a nightmare or anything. But it was just unusual in that I was presented with a clear and articulate piece of information.
Daddy, go inside.
And that bit of information was that something was waiting for me at 92nd Street and 24th Avenue. Although I'll be honest, that might not have been the exact intersection, but that happens to be where I am now. Because I don't remember what the intersection in the dream was at this point, although I have it written on my website somewhere. But it could have been 92nd Street and 24th Avenue. So the moment I woke up, I decided that was going to be my day's fate, was to see what awaited me at this intersection. And sure enough, there was nothing to speak of here. Just a residential area. No hidden messages, no oddball bit of kismet, no 181, no payphone, no love of my life waiting for me. But I do have that intersection written down somewhere in case it ever comes back to haunt me. But it reminds me that my mother had a couple of these things. A couple of similar crystal clear dreams that came to some kind of fruition, if you want to call it that. One of them was that when we were living in Laos, the word Volusia appeared crystal clear in her mind. And she'd never seen or heard that word before. It's spelled Volusia. And it would be, so that was in like 1975, I guess, or 74. I guess about 8 or 9 years later that our father left. They separated, and he moved to Volusia County. And she would always swear that that appearance of the word in her dream was some kind of foreboding, some kind of warning. And the other crystal clear thing that appeared in her head also had a connection to Volusia. The next thing that appeared in her head, I don't know when this was, but it was the name Palmer Stiles. Palmer and Stiles spelled Stiles. And that was a name she'd never heard of before. And would have had no reason to, and it took a long time for me to figure this out. Because I would research it every once in a while. When I would write my stories in high school mostly, one of my lead characters would always be named Palmer Stiles. Because I wanted to make my mother's premonition, mean something. If my stories ever became well known or anything, I'd want to be able to say, where'd you get that name Palmer Stiles? And I'd like to be able to answer that with that little anecdote. But there was actually a connection between Palmer Stiles and Volusia, because Palmer Stiles, it turned out, had been a race car driver in Daytona. And Daytona is, of course, known for its racetracks. By the time I found that guy named Palmer Stiles, I was kind of excited about it, and I wanted to tell my mother. But by the time I found all this, she really wasn't paying attention anymore. It's around the time she started asking me how things were in Miami, and I've never lived in Miami. So I did tell her anyway, and she responded in a way that made it clear she didn't know what I had just said. This is kind of a no man's land if you're out walking, but not much to fall back on. But I think there's a Home Depot up ahead, up around the bend. up yonder. Indeed, I was right. Look at all these Department of Correction vehicles parked here. And that'll be St. Michael's across the highway. You can't really see them through the shrubs and or whatever, but that section closest to the highway is where the infants are buried. The children's section. You can barely see them when you're standing in front of them. They're so small. The tombstones, that is. Stores like this are filled with adult products that I will never grow up to, never adult that far. Not those kind of adult products, you know what I mean? By adult, I mean grown up, you know. This is where you buy grown up products like charcoal briquettes for your barbecue and annuals for your whatever, your front yard. This is where you buy doorknobs. This is where you buy shit after you've stopped adulting. Only thing I think I ever bought at one of these places was air filters and a set of Torx screwdrivers. And the latter was so I could take apart a computer hard drive. Between the airport and all this highway that I've been walking across, I guess I've been breathing some pretty foul air today. I'm starting to get a slight headache from it. St. Michael's always impresses me for looking like it's so well maintained. St. Michael's Playground. That's right, I think I've seen this before. A place to store your elf. These old Gun Hill fence signs. If you see the older ones, you'll see them, instead of 324, they say FA4. That was the old telephone exchange name, Fairbanks. But these are obviously the newer ones. They're even decked out with the area code. Fancy. Keeping up with the times. This is another little stretch of road where people park long term. I think those RVs, whatever you call them, campers, have been there a long time. This is BQE West. Cool little stretch of road. It comes up to this staircase up ahead. And I don't take stairs as well as I used to, but there's no elevator around. This is not an accessible location. I was at Bloomingdale's a while ago, and I wanted to take an elevator up. But they had this like guilt sign that basically says, please only use this if you really, really need to. It's not lost on me that there are people that rely on those things, but still, Bloomingdale's, they had like 10 elevators. It's not like I'm gonna monopolize all of them, prevent anyone else from using them. I don't know what Garlock 175 means, but it looks cool. I've been seeing Happy Birthday Jay all over the place. I guess Jay's popular or something. Or maybe it's an inside joke. what's in here. It's a jewelry box. I'm sure it's filled with gross. Sure that whoever left it here emptied it of all the diamonds and gold bracelets. The temperature is finally starting to feel like summer. Middle of May, for Christ's sake. This walkway just kind of leaves you hanging. There's no path as a designated crossover, but I'll be all right. If I'm going to get run down, why not get it on video, right? That is where there used to be a couple of payphones. I think I made some radio calls from those. That's right, here's where they used to be. I think the round ones used to be parking meters. Those might have come later. The phones would have been